You're going to want to listen to this podcast.
You're about to listen to the What Everyone Was Thinking podcast. Buckle up.
All right, thank you for tuning in to episode 2 of What Everyone Was Thinking.
That's right, man.
My name is Sam, and this is my co-host, Seth.
That's right. I'm Seth.
Well, anyway, we're so happy to be doing this episode on toxic
Masculinity.
Yeah, give us the full toxic masculinity.
Toxic masculinity.
If you want to know what masculinity sounds like, that's it, folks.
Non-toxic masculinity.
Non-toxic masculinity. I said just masculinity.
Just masculinity.
Okay, so all right, we're in the clear. If you haven't watched our first episode, go watch that. We gave an episode on, we called it clickbait. It was just talking about social media, just standards of entertainment. It was really cool. I think it was a great episode, and we're on number 2, and we're diving right in. We care about y'all's time, and we want to just get right into
rolling.
it.
but they need to go to our YouTube page and subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube page.
Yes, thank you.
Leave comments. Interact. We love it. So
somebody has to get us on track with that to make sure that we are staying relevant.
Yes, make sure you do that. I'm pretty sure we have 7 subscribers.
I think it's more than that.
Is
it's
it?
8.
8. Okay, well, sorry.
we are cruising.
Under promise, over deliver.
Yeah. So I think we have like 2 subscribers. So if you could help us out. The purpose of this channel, we hopefully say what everyone is thinking, and if we're not saying what you're thinking, you have the freedom to not watch this video or watch it and leave us a hate comment.
Yes.
Because this is America, and you're free to do pretty much with it whatever you want.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. So let's define this toxic masculinity. So W.E.W.T, because that's where you go if you want to know anything. About the human body, or apparently human
traits.
Traits and nature. Toxic masculinity is an attitude or set of social guidelines stereotypically associated with manliness that often have a negative impact on men, women, and society in general. The term toxic masculinity isn't meant to imply that the idea of masculinity in itself is inherently bad. Instead, it's meant to point out that certain behaviors and ways of thinking, often associated with masculinity, from mental and physical toughness to sexism and homophobia, have a negative and often dangerous impact on the world.
Wow.
And frankly, I don't think I disagree with that definition.
Correct.
Because here is what we're not saying today. We're not trying to say that there is no such thing as toxic masculinity. I think what we are trying to say, which hopefully everyone is thinking or feeling, is that society, media, things that perpetuate our culture are trying to shift the definition of toxic masculinity, saying that all masculinity is toxic.
Right. I agree.
So, there's a couple other definitions that I pulled up. Here's one from dictionary.com, because if you put .com on the end of dictionary and you bought that domain, you get to choose what all the words mean.
Right.
So a cultural concept of manliness that glorifies stoicism, strength, virility, and dominance. And that is a socially maladaptive or harmful to mental health. Men and women both suffer when toxic masculinity perpetuates expectations that are restrictive and traumatizing.
Glad I didn't read that.
So it's saying it glorifies stoicism, strength. Honestly, this is closer to the definition that I disagree with, because to me, you can't just attack traits that are just inherently masculine.
Right.
So I felt like what would be helpful, Mr. Seth, is if we go through and list off some conventional masculine traits. So for the viewers, this is traits that I think from a philosophy standpoint or psychology standpoint, these are just objective masculine traits. And there's also a list of feminine traits, which we won't read, but these are just, these are just masculine. And I'll go ahead and read them. Strength, courage, independence, violence, assertiveness, risk-taking, dominance, primacy of work, desire to win, emotional control, and pursuit of social status. So this is a list, and these are traits that are masculine.
Correct.
So, and it's sad that we have to define it, but
Right.
like this is, pardon me, these are masculine traits. So here's the point I'm trying to make today.
Healthy masculine traits.
So yes, and I think this is like a everything in moderation kind of thing,
Right.
or everything in balance.
Right.
So I think any one of those traits, if taken too far, can, like, let's just point out the one that's kind of sticking out like a sore thumb: violence.
Right.
Okay. So you can make the objective statement, or if you can try to make the objective statement, violence is bad.
Right.
Okay. Well, what if you're trying to defend yourself?
Yeah.
Is it okay to get violent?
I will be very violent.
Okay. So I think that's safe to say violence has its purpose and has its appropriate nature. I mean, I think there's a perpetuation that if you're violent in any way, that's negative or that's bad.
Right.
So if someone, and I think what the other side or the other argument is, if you make that off limits, then the world's going to be safer, or this or that, or like, you can't, cause what are we getting down to the point here? I mean, cause I'll paint the picture of probably the person that's not here to give their side of the argument.
Right.
They're saying, because I think when I think of this whole argument of toxic masculinity, what I think of is the person saying, you can't teach that 8 or 10-year-old boy. Don't teach him how to hunt. Don't teach him how to punch. Don't
Right.
teach him how to defend himself, or, they would never probably word it that way, but they're like, don't teach him to be violent.
Right.
And they're like, oh, he let him choose for himself. Like what if he doesn't want to take an animal's life or whatever,
Yep.
And number one, my first thought against that is just like, mind your business.
Yeah. Right.
But we're here debating the potential side effects of teaching and not even just your son, but like teaching your offspring, your children, your people that are under your care and control, teach them some masculine traits that are going to help them succeed
Or survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, it's kind of like that person would say you're teaching, whether it's your son or your daughter, you're teaching them to fight. No, I'm teaching them to defend themselves. Like, I think when it's toxic is when you teach them to fight. Like,
Sure.
You don't want them to have the attitude of like, oh, I'm just gonna start beating everybody up. It's just like, it's the attitude of, if something happens to me, I'm a little bit more confident that I'm going to survive this situation, whether it's physical or not physical. Like, you can't, that's also taught by, not necessarily an action, but if you're teaching someone, if you're in a situation, how, you should be responding to get out of that situation where it doesn't have to get physical.
Yeah. And we're just moving the needle here.
Yeah.
We're just moving the needle here, the definition, because we're going to both agree. We've seen the kids that or teenagers, adults that just take it too far. Right. And to me, the toxic masculinity is the dude who literally cannot like go a day without challenging someone to fight.
Right.
Or like, you can just see, to me, toxic masculinity is number one. I don't even think we need the definition.
Yeah.
Or I don't think we need that label.
Right.
I think we should just call it insecurity.
Yeah.
That's truly what it is. Like, toxic masculinity equals insecurity.
Well, yeah.
Because if you're confident, you're one of the most masculine people I know. And I mean that as a compliment.
Thanks.
I wish y'all can see the video. Another plug for our YouTube channel. If you're watching this or if you're listening to this on a podcast, go check out our YouTube channel
and subscribe.
You can see all these. Like and subscribe, please. Pound that subscribe, or how do they say it? Smash
that subscribe button.
Just tackle it. That subscribe button.
Yeah,
just knock it out of the park. But anyway, I think if we just labeled it what it was, I think we would just call it insecurity, because it's the people that have to prove to everybody they're the toughest. They have to prove to everybody that they know the most about guns, or they know the most about the military, or they know the most about this subject, that subject. That to me, that's toxic masculinity, and it's just insecurity. It's because you weren't told you were special.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like Jordan Peterson says, just it's sinful behavior might be a better term for toxic masculinity, because people that
elaborate on that.
Well, I mean, like if you are violent or you are hateful, that's sinful behavior. So, I mean, as opposed to calling it toxic, it's sin. It's the nature of sin, and it's on both sides. It's no different than toxic femininity. Like you can have sinful behavior as a woman too, and have the same traits, but because of society, we label it toxic masculinity, and it's just a term that just gets shoved down people's throat when it's really sin, sin at its nature. Yeah.
And it's just like we listed every one of those traits, like independence. You can take that too far. You can, let's just talk about that. Independence, it's okay to ask for help. Right? It's not masculine to ask for help. So when it pushes into the toxic category, it's like, oh, I can do everything on my own. You don't even think that your spouse could help you. Like, you know what I mean? Like
or because you're a man, you're going to think, oh, I don't want my wife to help me do this.
Right.
Right. So it's like, you have to get over that.
Yeah. And really, like, cause this is not a marriage talk.
No,
I mean, but if you want some free advice, I mean, don't deprive your spouse from helping out.
Right.
I mean, I think there's a healthy balance. It's supposed to be a give and take, and a very much so. I mean, I think growing up, I think about my dad and like how he worked at Chrysler, to the Toledo machining plant for 35 years, I believe, give or take a couple years, but a long time.
Yeah.
And, he was there like lifting torque converters all day on an assembly line. Like, it's like, I mean, it's just like a man job,
right?
And towards the end of working there, he was in janitorial and like, had kind of settled down, but like he worked hard for 35 years. Right. And, I think about that, and I mean, for those who don't know me, I mean, I work at a church now.
Yeah.
and so to me, like,
not a whole lot of torque converters.
I didn't lift a torque converter this week. I didn't even lift a guitar. I just lifted a microphone.
Right. There are some pretty large flags they have to put up.
Oh yeah. Those can be dangerous. So, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is like, I think that a lot of the people who fit into that toxic masculinity category, it's really been passed down.
Agreed.
In some way. And which leads me to a very important point, that what I'm trying to say today is that a male presence in the home is so important.
Right.
And how that male presence interacts with the home is so important.
Right.
Because just simply being there's not enough. I mean, your intentional actions and how you lead your family,
right,
is number one, maybe an unpopular opinion, but I think I believe that the man is the head of the household.
Right.
And I believe that his strong leadership over his family is important.
Right.
Now, I can already feel it. Like, I already felt it when I said, like, when I said that the man is the head of the household. How you choose to structure your home is up to you.
Right.
This is America. But to me, the way I believe that God, who I believe is our creator, intended it, was that there would be a male presence in the home, and there would be a man and a woman, and whether they choose to have kids or not, but he would still be a protector. He'd be a provider. And I believe that's the way God intended it. And I think that how men choose to pursue that and how they operate in that role is incredibly pivotal to how his home works and runs and how his children get developed. And, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I mean, and depending on how your household's structured, it's how those kids are going to be when they're older. Like they're going to follow what they see, right? So whether they're getting that example at home or they're seeing that example through friends or they don't have that example at all, they're going to follow whatever example they see. So it's our job to put forth a non-toxic / sinful behavior example of how men should act.
Yeah. And to me, I think to the measure in which the man, the dad, the father, how present he is and how available he is pivotal to how, everybody in the family develops towards being a better person or just growing.
Right.
Because I think when we see absent fathers, I think that is what promotes and breeds toxic masculinity.
Right.
Because if you watch something from a distance, you try to emulate it the best that you can. And when you don't have a close father figure explaining why this is right, that's wrong, this is wrong, this is right, then you watch it on TV, you watch it on this and that. So when you have, unfortunately, say like a young man who doesn't have a father figure, he's going to constantly be trying to glean masculinity from everywhere he can see it.
Right.
And obviously you're watching action movies, you're watching, I don't know, sports, all these things will highlight the most extreme masculine characteristics.
Right.
And if that's all you're taking for, and that's the only thing that you have to go off of, then you're just going to double down on the things you see.
Yep.
And that's going to create the most extreme caricature of masculinity, which will be toxic.
Yep.
And it's super unfortunate.
Right.
And something I thought is incredibly important to point out is I know everybody's family situation is different. You've got a startling amount of single moms out there.
Oh yeah.
Who I can only hope that we have single mom, listeners and viewers. And what I want to just say to you today is you're awesome.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And what you're doing is incredibly stressful, but incredibly important. And if you hear anything that I say today, don't hear that I am saying that your home is simply dysfunctional because you don't have a man there.
Right.
That is not true. And that's not at all what we're saying. What we're trying to say is male examples, healthy male role models are so important. If you have a son, if you're a single mom and you have a son, it is so important that you get them. I don't know whether you join a church or you join some sort of club, group, something safe, where there's male role models that can just simply, at the best, rub off on your child.
Right.
I would say at the least,
yeah,
rub off on your child. And at the best, they're taking your kid to coffee. They're taking your kid out shooting. I mean,
yeah.
Who knows? Like is someone who can start giving that young man some very pointed, like, male guidance.
Right. And that's a good thing to point out too, because that those kids might already be watching you. Like if you're not that guy, those kids might already be watching you because they're in that situation, and they might see Sam at church and be like, oh, Sam's a good role model. Sam's a good example. So I'm going to try to do what Sam's doing, where you might not know that. So if you're putting off the bad, vibe or have those toxic traits, you could be being an example to someone that you don't even know you're being an example to. So especially in those single mom situations.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with a single mom approaching a man. And I mean, I know sometimes this is like, man, do you going to feel like you're flirting with him or this, that? I mean, I think, it could be a married man who you're just simply saying like, hey, I mean, you're a great example to your kids, or, however you want to do that. I mean, this is encouragement. This is not shame to any single mom, or, I mean, and there's single dads out there too. Like that's a struggle either way. Any person that's doing single parenting, my heart goes out to you, and just know there's people out there that would love to help.
Absolutely.
And just love to help be an example to your children. But it's important to have a male presence in the home, and I think it's important to have a female presence in the home, because there's feminine traits too that, we're talking about toxic masculinity today, but I mean, there's traits that are inherently male, and there's traits that are inherently female, but that doesn't mean there isn't crossover.
Right.
For example, it is typically a trait of preparing food. As long as our culture extends, there's a very big staple in our humanity where women like will prepare food.
Right.
But you have 17 Traegers.
I'm a big food preparer.
And you prepare food.
Yeah, all the time.
So
more than my wife.
Yeah. So is it fair to say, and Heather, how much can she lift?
A lot.
It's a lot. We can't legally say the number.
We can't
legally
say the actual kilos she can lift.
For everyone's safety, we can't say the number.
But if you need someone to carry you out of a building, she's the one you want next to you.
Believe it or not, you can't, maybe if you've never met us in person, you can't tell, but I'm a very large individual.
Right.
And if it was between Heather and me to carry you out of the building, you want Heather to do it.
If you have a good leather belt on, you want Heather to be able to grab that belt and get you out of that building.
So, I mean, the point I bring out is I feel like that has not compromised your masculinity in the least.
Right.
Number one, your wife can lift more than you.
Yep.
Number two, you prepare food.
Right.
But obviously the way you prepare the food is the coolest. If you haven't checked out Seth Barbecue Insta page, go look at the glory that is happening there. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's our only sponsor, by the way.
It still remains our only sponsor. So we're supposed to say not sponsored if we say a brand, but we are sponsored by Seth Barbecue because we're using Seth Barbecue headquarters right now.
Yeah.
Coming to you from Seth Barbecue headquarters. So the point is, like, if you were toxic, like you would have an issue,
right,
with Heather going to CrossFit every day,
right,
and getting stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger.
Yeah.
So to me, there's traits that can bleed over between male and female. And I feel like that would be a trait of someone who is toxic. Those are the people, like, I didn't even list off the traits that were harmful hypermasculine traits, but one of them would be like homophobia, like, be like, you couldn't, like, hey, like, you can't cook if you're a man. Like,
right.
It's like that to me is like, or obviously hyper competitiveness. There's aggression. I mean, aggression is like violence taken too far. Like there's all these traits that can go too far.
Right.
Here's a question for you. How do you say, like, a popular phrase in our culture is man up.
Man up.
Hey, man up. So what does that mean?
That's a tough one for me. I guess if I were to think of the healthy masculine traits, to me that would be providing for my family. Mm-hmm. Whether that's monetarily, security, emotionally, physically, just being here for my family and my loved ones and my friends. So when I hear man up, to me, that's not like puff my chest and,
mm-hmm.
Start peacocking around trying to be a man.
Yeah.
Man up to me means do your job.
Yeah. I'll just say, I agree with everything you said. And to add to it, it means like do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
Like to me, one of the most masculine traits you can have is to have integrity.
Yep.
And I think manning up means do what you say you're going to do and do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
It means really just like you're falling short where a man, because I mean, we say man up in the most extreme cases, and we say it like even just like if you burn your fingy and you're like, you know what I mean? Like that, there's a very small things, and then there's like, hey, you just stepped out of your marriage.
Right.
And you need to own up, and you need to man up
Right.
and do it. Or you're like, you know what I mean? Like you're just, there's very extreme situations where we would say it, and there's very small ones. And what I'm referring to is mainly the big ones, where it means it's a course correction.
Yeah.
That to me is what man up means.
Right.
It's like the direction you're going is not good. Course correct and do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
Reprioritize the things in your life, your family, your faith, whatever is important to you, or whatever should be important to you is what I'm saying. Like, so
it's like just get back on task.
Yeah.
And that also means, and I've mentioned this before because this is our second podcast.
This is the second podcast.
Oh man. We won't get into that.
We're not going to get into that because it's embarrassing.
But part of manning up is also admitting fault. So if you are in the wrong, it's being able to be humble enough to be like, yeah, it's my fault, or I caused this situation, or
if it's your wife.
Even if it's your wife.
So even if your wife, calls you out and you realize that you are in the wrong, let's all say it together. Honey,
I'm sorry.
Let's try another one. You're right. Ready? Honey, you're right.
And I know Heather will listen to this. I don't know if she'll make any comments, but I don't know if I've ever said that to her.
Well, it is very, very few and far between that I've said that to Kelsey, because I know she will listen to it and say, like, no. And I've tried to be better at that. And, this is great accountability for us,
Yep.
but there's something powerful with that. And you earn so much, like, I feel like you earn so much equity with not only your wife, but anybody if you're willing to admit that you're wrong.
Yeah.
People that would be in the toxic masculinity category would say, oh, this compromises my strength, or this compromises my integrity as far as like my image.
Yeah.
But really what it does for you is people go, oh my gosh, like they're human.
Yeah.
I feel like I can trust them
Right.
because they're being honest with themselves and they're being honest with me.
Right.
And there's something so powerful with that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and another thing that Jordan Peterson's big on when it comes to toxic masculinity is taking responsibility for yourself. So like you can't control the way other people respond or act in certain situations, but you can control what you do. So, part of that is if you are in a certain situation, knowing, clarity of mind of how should I be reacting to the situation, or what example should I be putting forward right now? Like a lot of that is huge to me when it comes to the men doing the right thing and women doing the right thing. I mean, we keep talking about men and men, but women also have the responsibility to not be, toxic.
Yeah. Yeah. This is like, that's a great point. Because that's all you can control. I think actually toxic levels of masculinity or femininity or whatever is when you feel the need to control what everybody else is thinking and what everybody else is saying. Like that's the most toxic thing in our culture.
Yeah.
Is like, you can't feel like you can think freely. I totally think like I feel like I can think freely.
Yeah.
But I know we live in a society where the average person does not feel that way.
Which is sad.
It's so sad. I mean, I think of just coming out of, the pandemic and in how, you can't have an opinion about that, whether it's mask or vaccine or this or that, without feeling like someone's going to literally tear your face off.
Right.
And they are going, like, you know what I mean? If you don't toe the public line
Right.
of what was right, masks are good. I mean, like, and frankly, it's if you question masks.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it. If you question masks, you question the vaccine. We're probably going to get taken down of YouTube just for me saying the word vaccine. But you can't even have a contrary thought to any of those things. And the reason why am I even bringing that up, like in a toxic masculinity conversation, is I feel like if you were to be someone who's just an appropriate masculine male and you choose to put your views out there, that's a toxic male right there.
Agree. That's what they make you feel.
That's what they want you. I feel like, who's they?
Who's they? Not us.
Because again, we're, I can just feel I feel like we can say they, and I feel like the majority, the lion's share of our viewers and listeners know who they are.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's important to say, I think it's the media. And I think that there's a collective. I don't know who's running the show. And that's not what this episode is. I don't know who's running the show, but I know there's a force of nature. And we may have to just dedicate another show to who is they, but
Who is they?
And that'll be what the episode's called, but we're going to need to do some research.
No, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Thinking against the grain makes you toxic nowadays. When you should thinking against the grain, to me, is healthy because it causes you to be a free thinker and to not just fall in line. Like don't fall in line. I mean, if it's right, fall in line. If it's not, don't fall in line.
Yeah.
But be an individual enough to be like, I'm going to figure this out.
Yeah. And I get emphatic about this because, yes, I get mad with people who don't agree with me about stuff as it pertains to the pandemic. Like, number one, like when I see someone driving in their car by themselves, with rubber gloves and a mask, and a visor, and
a face shield.
Is that what I mean? I don't even know the proper term.
Visor. I think like
Okay, so it's a face shield.
Okay,
so they're triple down. I wasn't going to say the other thing.
Triple down.
And maybe they have the triple V.
There's a very good chance they do.
I mean, it would stand to reason. I mean, we just know this. I mean, like, we've all have 2 years of experience with this. And if you're in that category and you're watching this, which I highly doubt
you are,
yeah. But, I would just have to say, like, I believe in your freedom to do what you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And number one, the types of people who are doing that, I feel actually less anger towards and more like
sadness.
I feel sadness because if you're truly
scared to death,
number one, I want to tell you, like, and like, I don't think you need to be, unless you're so immunocompromised that like it has nothing to do with COVID.
Yeah. I mean, that's just your point out.
That's your life.
There are people that probably have to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Like, we're not saying that if you are immune compromised, that you should not be smart and protect your
absolutely.
Immune system.
And I know people who are like that. Like, I'm sure we both know people who are like that. And obviously, like, it's very unfortunate that that's your life, but I think we're just talking about the people who are otherwise healthy and feel the need to wear a mask. I mean, that's not the point of this episode. I feel like I'm really digressing into like my personal views on this, but like what I'm trying to say is, like, I feel like I should be able to voice those views. And I feel like there's if there's one positive thing that could come out of this episode is an empowerment of not only men, but men and women to be able to think for themselves and to be able to say, that doesn't make sense. And whatever conclusion you arrive at, I believe in your freedom to think and feel the way that you do. But what I don't think we have right now is true freedom, because I think that what the media and what's socially being perpetuated is, if you don't choose to agree with some, what I would consider outlandish views, you are going to be demonized.
Yeah.
And put into like a very unfortunate, unsatisfactory category.
Correct.
So, man, just think for yourself, and I think the more things like this podcast where someone can listen to that and just know you're not alone.
Nope.
There's a reason why they call it the silent majority.
Silent majority.
And I think if the majority started getting a little less silent, then we would be in a much better spot. So the point I'm trying to make with all of this is that it's not toxic to speak your mind. In fact, it's healthy.
Yep.
So for those who don't have the courage to do that, my encouragement to you today is to just start small, to just start saying, it's okay when someone says something that you don't agree with. Yeah, I disagree with that. And then just wait.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you disagree with? Then you talk.
Yeah.
I disagree because of this reason.
Yeah.
And really whatever it is, it's okay. Conflict is not toxic.
Right.
Inherently. I mean, obviously conflict, just like anything else. So, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right. And when you relate it to, you have a point here that says, and it's not okay for men to be pigs.
Yeah.
Don't be a jerk about what you're free thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
And isn't it just everything in balance? Because you bring up that whole point about, men can't be pigs. Like, number one, it's not okay. Like, what we're not saying is that it's okay for men to just, full steam ahead, do whatever they want, say whatever they want. That's not okay. Like, we're still going to call you a jerk.
Right.
Like, we're still going to say you're a pig.
Yeah.
For how you treated that woman, or, you waited until she got drunk. Like,
yeah.
That's not okay. Like, because I think it's important for us to say, and I think we've done a good job about moving the needle, so to speak, of just saying, like, the whole point of this episode was not to say that there's no such thing as toxic masculinity. It's that we're saying we take exception with the fact or the notion that all masculinity is bad.
Right.
Because it's not true.
Right.
Masculinity is essential
right.
to our society, and it's essential to your family. So it's not okay for men to be pigs. I mean, I think about the Me Too movement, just like how does that play into toxic masculinity? Is like, obviously the man, there is very real incidents. Like, a man went too far because he felt entitled.
Yeah.
Plug for our next episode. Episode 3. Entitlement. But the man felt entitled to take something from a woman.
Right.
That, like, he rationalized it with saying, oh, like, she's into this, or she's, however, like, you know what I mean? Like, and just completely losing sight of self-awareness. And just, I think that there's a lot that can still be said about toxic masculinity. We're just moving the needle here.
Right. And just because a man intimidates you or disagrees with you does not make him toxic.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah.
It's important to say there are going to be people who just simply disagree with you.
Right.
And that's going to be the thing. And we need more of it.
Oh yeah.
We just need more of it, because, again, you can disagree without fighting.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So you don't, I feel like I just picture this scenario, like, where, like, somebody says something and then you go, oh, I disagree. And they go, like,
the old open hand slap.
Yeah.
I disagree with you. Protect the face. Protect the face.
SWAT. Well, anyway, let's bring this in for a landing, Mr. Seth.
Yeah. Let's bring it in for landing. I mean, my takeaways are, You opened it up with the characteristics of masculine traits: strength, courage, independence, violence, assertiveness, risk-taking, dominance, primacy of work. All that stuff to me is very important to a man who is raising 3 daughters and has a wife. I want my girls to see all this stuff in a man and see it healthy. So I want my girls to know if it's time for dad to be violent, my dad can be very violent. Like I want them to know that, because I want them to find a man that has the availability to turn that switch when he has to, and then be an emotional, a protector, a comforter when he doesn't have to be. Like, so like you have to have all these traits and still be able to be a man. But it's like, I want my girls to see that. Like, I don't want them to find a guy that is aggressive or dominant, or, I want them to have a good example.
Because number one, I do not envy the men. There's going to be 3 men. There's going to be 3 men in this life.
Ben, I'm watching you, Ben.
Who's Ben?
Bailey's Ben.
Look out, Ben. That's one thing I can tell you. I haven't met Ben yet. So,
well, you will. He was at church last week, so he might come again.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to me, that's huge. A huge part of my life is being a man for my girls, so they can see a good example of what they want in a masculine man. Man,
like, what's that like when you're like, when they're just bringing somebody and you're like, that's my daughter.
Yeah. I mean, and my girls know where I stand, and I can't, I can only raise them and hope that they know what decisions to make in certain situations, but hopefully they're looking for boys that emulate characteristics of the man they have in their life.
Let's hope so.
If that makes sense.
No, that's great. I mean, and that's the whole point. It comes full circle. And yeah, I think that's important stuff. And just, yeah. And I think my closing thought is just, don't let somebody intimidate you into backing down because they're going to gaslight you into thinking you're being toxic.
Absolutely. Yep.
And that to me is that's huge. I think for me, like I just, because I try to think about the little nuggets that are going to help people in our podcast, because obviously this is fun for us, but I think it's, after we did the first episode, I realized how important this is. Yeah. And just like public perception, and just like how, people can be empowered. And, obviously our viewership is low now, but it's going to grow.
Yeah.
Like and subscribe.
Like, right. Smash that button.
Smash it. That's what they say. Smash that like button. All right. Well, hey, this has been episode 2 of
Toxic Masculinity.
That's not what our podcast is called.
Oh, sorry.
Hold on, let's try it again. Yeah. All right. Well, this has been episode 2 of
What Everyone is Thinking.
All right. So we'll tune in next time with you guys. Have a great day.
Have a great day.